Okay, listen, I really don't know about the setup. I did my best. If my best is bad, I am so sorry. It's just, this is what I can do, okay? I'm at the verge of an emotional breakdown. Constantly, though. It's not a new thing. But, you know, this is where all the sad, depressed, traumatized girlies go, right? Booktube? Am I wrong? Well, this is going to be so long, which is good because it means I read a lot, but at the same time, I don't know. When I read so many books, especially like audiobooks and sometimes similar, they do blend together. So it's a little bit harder to remember exactly what I read, what I liked, what I didn't like. So it would be ideal if I found this a little bit closer to the time of reading. If life was ideal, I don't even know how to imagine that. It doesn't even fit in my brain. I've been reading a lot more lately, thank God. Also, audiobooks help because sometimes it's hard to look at the same spot for a long time. Sometimes it's all you can do for mental health reasons. I have not been filming anything, so this is the best I got. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. My best is the best I can give. So, I read I Love You, Call Me Back by Sabrina Benaim. If you know her, you probably know her from Instagram or maybe even TikTok. But I always found her so relatable to me, especially talking about depression. I don't know, there's something about her poems. I'm not a poetry girly, but there is something about her poems that actually gets to me. Somehow I enjoy other people getting my life experience and not feeling alone. Go figure. I'm going to read you a quote of one of the things that felt relatable to me that may be giving a lot away of my trauma, my problems. It is what it is. That's why we're here, right? To share traumas. I thought that was the point, because otherwise I've been doing it wrong. I read her first book. That one is Depression and Other Magic Tricks. I love that one. I think I liked it more than this one, but it's very typical. Like the first work of a person, I think sometimes is what contains the most soul, even if it's not the most accomplished at writing per se. But still, I found a lot of things that I found really relatable. My father told me depression turned me into a monster. I told my father it was not the depression that made me a monster. I was only following in his footsteps. Oh, how I wish I could be mad at anyone the way I am with myself for not being mad at you. If you feel called out, then we can be friends. If not, also. But sometimes similar traumas do bring people closer. Not everyone gets you if they don't understand how fucked up you are. The father I hope my father to be has me by the ankles. I am heavy with hope. My father is trying to change. I drag around this promise because hope is a stubborn dying. Sometimes these are not consecutive, but they are from the same poem. But I select the lines that actually I relate to the most. I see the colossal soul of depression cresting over my day, and instead of holding my breath, I wave to an old friend. I sort of realized that I really like dark mysteries, and I have no idea why I haven't read more. Like, literally, my favorite book is Sharp Objects, and another of my favorite books is Pretty Girls. Gillian Flynn and Karin Slaughter are both pretty fucked up ladies in the best possible way. So why not read things that I like? That's a weird concept, isn't it? So I read Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. It's about these three foster sisters that had a very horrible experience with a foster mother, Miss Fairchild. One day a body is found in the old home they lived in, and so that stirs up a lot of issues. I'm really a fan of sisterly dynamics, like trauma. I'm a fan of trauma. I'm a fan of the way trauma is depicted when it's depicted well. I was hoping for something a bit deeper, I'm not gonna lie. I think there was a potential for this to be amazing, like a new favorite. but it didn't quite get there. There was something about the sisters that wasn't deep enough, and especially Miss Fairchild. I feel like it sort of, which happens a lot on thrillers, I definitely found out later, which is letting characterization and character development go by the wayside, putting more emphasis in the twist than actual making sense. So, that was a little bit disappointing, but I still really enjoyed it. Then I read Rubbernecker by Belinda Bauer. This wasn't really that enjoyable. It's about a med student with Asperger's that investigates a dead body in one of his classes. There was something very interesting about his point of view. I really like these narrations that tell things from a point of view that is not typical or not neurotypical. There is something about someone constantly questioning things that we naturalize. We just think they're normal just because they have always been that way. But sometimes the reason no longer makes sense. Talk about religion. I don't know. I just really like points of view that look at our social norms and conducts from the outside and question them, especially when they do it with humor. And that is one of the reasons I like Dexter, for example. And in this case, some of that was interesting, but then it dragged quite a bit. And it was very annoying to watch him find things out that we already knew. And the other point of views, I found them so annoying and boring. The POV of one of the victims was quite distressing and frustrating, and though it was well done in a way, it still didn't make for an enjoyable experience, I also enjoyed some of the relationships, but overall, I'm not sure it was worth it. Then I read The Good Daughter by Karin, which is the author of one of my favorite books, Pretty Girls. And it's weird because actually Pretty Girls, I don't fully enjoy some of the mystery and some of the things that happen, but the dynamics and some scenes, they're done so well and it had me crying. I really have no idea why I haven't read all of her books, maybe because there are so fucking many. So it's like daunting. I want to believe that I will get to all of them, but especially with the long series, I'm sure it will take me some time. In any case, it was very hard to read at some points. Some things did not fully surprise me, but it was very well constructed and it was worth it in the end anyways. And apparently, as it's 2 for 2, Carrie Slaughter had me crying my eyes out. Maybe I'm a masochist. You learn new things every day. I wasn't really fully shocked, but the truth is, I'm not one of those people that reads thrillers for the shock. Like, the shock is interesting, but if the character work and the dynamics and the writing are not good enough, then I don't care if I was shocked, especially when it seems like they ruin a possibly good story just to shock you. It's like the whole experience not worth it for me, like frustrating and annoying. It's worse than a bad book, because a bad book, I just stop reading it and that's it. But a book that seems like it could be good and then it ruins everything and all the characterization, everything that makes sense just for a twist, feels like an insult, if I'm honest. So I wasn't really shocked by most of the reveals, but I love the character work, and that is, I think, where Karin Slaughter shines. I'm sure you will find out more about that later, because I will be reading more of her books. I know I will. Then I suffered through The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I have heard so many good things about Riley Sager. I was really hoping I would like it, even though I knew there was a possibility that I didn't, because really there is something like cookie cutter things that I don't really enjoy. Like, I can have fun a little bit, but it's not really enough for me to feel like it was worth the journey. So The Only One Left is about a home health aide that goes to take care of an old lady, and she starts to figure things out. I really found it super interesting that this old lady that was incapacitated was this like myth that had a song, like a very creepy song, as if it was like Bloody Mary style. I found that interesting, but then the rest was like torture. Every single character was like sanctimonious, and they gave speeches, and they made zero sense, and they were unlikable, which I'm fine with unlikable characters, but they need to make sense. And this did not. They did not. It was just that, like, corny and repetitive, and characters that had no moral high ground were judging each other, which makes zero sense. And even though that can sometimes reflect reality, it wasn't done in a realistic way for me to forget that. The twist for me was ridiculous and insane. I might be willing to try one more Saga book, but I really don't think it will be for me. I just really don't. I know myself, but I am willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, and maybe the subject matter will make it better. I really don't know, but I really don't have high hopes for that. Then I read Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. It's about two women and a baby girl that go missing in like different circumstances. They could be connected. That's what the premise is about, sort of. But it was insane. One of those that throws everything away for the sake of twist. And I hate it. I think this was one of the first ones that made me very upset. And I started to see like more of a pattern on thrillers, which it shouldn't be a new thing. It shouldn't be a surprise. But you know, sometimes I'm very smart. Absolutely everything was ridiculous. Characters were ridiculous and boring. Like, that's the worst thing. If you're going to be like a ridiculous twist and ridiculous characters, at least make it fun. It can't be all of the bad things. Like, you can choose a few, but all of the bad things, I feel like that's too much. I also don't love multiple POVs, but especially when they are this boring and ridiculous. And I especially don't like POVs where you feel like you're being lied to. Especially when they are so like boring and repetitive, and they make no sense because I don't know. I don't want to spoil, but zero sense, truly zero sense. Then I was really hoping I would like this because I read Beach Read by Amy Henry and I didn't like it. Like it was, to me, it was basic. I'm sorry, like it was fine, but I definitely did not like it as much as other people did, and like I don't even know if I would recommend it. Like it's that basic and boring for me. I don't even remember some of the details, but I do know that it wasn't funny enough and it wasn't deep enough, which is what I want for most books. Like they either have to be actually funny and interesting and fun and entertaining, or they have to be deep enough that they like make me really care about the characters, they make me cry, or it's either one or the other. You have to give me something. And it fell short for me on both counts. Maybe if it would have been more fun, if I would have liked the humor more, or there was more humor, I would have enjoyed it more, because it was like going more in that direction. It supposedly has deep stuff, but for me, that is like puddle depth, you know? People we meet on vacation is like opposites attract, friends who then something happened and they stop being friends and they have a second chance at like reconnecting. Some of it was fun, but it felt like between the flashbacks and the present time, it didn't help. Like it should have. I think the flashbacks should have been shorter and more succinct, showing you what they wanted to show you without like trying to make the flashbacks the story. Because it ended up being like two separate stories, and I ended up being like, okay, move along. I get it. Also because I wasn't really surprised about like the shock or the twist or the secret. So when you take too much to tell me, it makes it annoying. Then I read His and Hers by Alice Feeney, and this got me raging. I was hoping I liked Alice Feeney because I also have heard, sort of like Riley Sager, I've heard a lot of good things, and she has a lot of books, so I was like hoping that I liked them. I don't know if this makes me weird, but I like finding authors I enjoy. This is about a news presenter, Anna, and her ex-boyfriend Jack. They both have POV. He's a detective on her old hometown, and there's something about like hometowns that I really find it interesting when you go back to that place that is so traumatizing for whatever reason, depending on the story, of course. This had a lot of potential, and I think that is why this got me so upset, because if the book is bad, it's bad, but when it has potential and they throw it all away, I find it so upsetting. I like this idea or concept that we would see two opposing points of view that maybe showed, like the show The Affair, they show you how different characters see the same events. And I find that fascinating, even if sometimes it's a little bit repetitive, but it is fascinating if it's done well. It wasn't done well. So, like, it was entertaining, but once you see, it makes no sense. It feels like a betrayal somehow. And one of the things that frustrated me the most were the motives. So I'm gonna have to go a little bit into spoilers because otherwise it's impossible. Because that is what kills me, and I need to rant about this, and I'm really sorry, but I guess I will either put a warning or something. Like, really, the mom with dementia, all this to get her and her former son-in-law back together? Really? That is the reason? Really? I swear to God. I haven't read enough spoilers, but it is one of the stupidest movies. Stupid. It got me so annoyed. I was reading on my Kindle, but otherwise I think maybe it would have thrown it across the room, honestly. Insane. I feel like maybe something got lost in the editing. There was a story where the real trauma was worse, and a story where it was like more typical adolescent stuff. The thought where it was typical adolescent stuff, it really made zero sense that the mom would kill them for that. And the very, very dark one is like the mom had her motives wrong. So in any case, this doesn't work. Especially the mother killing Kat. That was insane. Like, that poor girl. Like, really? Just killing her because she took her daughter's job? The top right off lady. Honestly, just insane. And insane from the ratings perspective. Not even insane in the way that you would expect a dementia patient to think. It's, oh God. And involving the children? That's like unforgivable. I really hope no one was rooting for that lady, because that was insane. That was a victim, and that's it. And then she was a victim again. She did not deserve that. Even though, of course, no one deserves these types of horrible things. The fact that it seems at some point that the book is trying to get you to side with the mom, that is insane. That woman is the villain, and a ridiculous villain. I guess they were trying to go for Grey, but I think she did things that are unforgivable. And then one of the girls she killed for being two-faced or liars. First of all, when they were teenagers, if the scene had been small, it would have been ridiculous. They were not just two-faced and liars. They were monsters. Absolute monsters. Zoe, she did not look the other way, as the message said. He was literally a psychopath who killed the neighborhood pet. How is that looking the other way? Please explain. I can't with this book. Like, it truly felt offensive. Like an insult to the readers. And I want to give her one more chance. I think 2 chances are usually the most I'm willing to give. Usually. Sometimes I punish myself because, of course, we shall see.